Welcome to a not normal edition of James tastes his way through a new coffee that isn't actually a new coffee this week. I have a glut of delicious coffees on our roasted stock portfolio, and because of that I cannot and should not bring in a brand new coffee to the portfolio. There's a little discussion that we're having internally in the blending room about the release cadence. We do 52 coffees a year. I try to do 52 new coffees a year, but having got onto this lorrying, which I've gone up from 9 kilo load masses to 12 kilos, I now have a bit more coffee that I need to try to sell to people on the internet or at the farmers markets or those who come through the roastery. And the result of that is that we are having a little bit of a backlog of coffees because our sales, the number of bags sold, haven't increased by the percentage of the increase in number of bags produced between the probat and the lorrying. So I've got to sell a bit more coffee essentially, which is a bit of a conundrum that I'm trying to work through, and part of the reason I'm stood here in front of you today talking about stuff on the internet with the hope that some of you migrate to our website, theblendingroom.co.uk, and purchase some coffee based on me being here talking about stuff and you gaining trust in myself and the company that I run. Now, that wasn't the intro to this video that I thought I was going to do. That was an off-the-cuff discussion, real-life discussion about why I'm in this position today doing this style of video. This style of video is going to be an analysis between this release that's gone out to our subscribers of Eli Chilcon this week versus the first time I released it back in February. Have those profiles changed? Have I made any significant adjustments to the coffee and the heat application because of any reason? The reasons being ambient temperature, the humidity within the roastery, the age of the coffee. These are things that I was thinking about last night whilst I was trying to decide what to do in front of you and this camera. And I think it's going to be an interesting analysis between the two. So what I'm going to do is show you those two profiles side by side, and we'll have a little look about what changes have been made through those different periods. On the screen now we have an overlay of the two roasts. 26511 is the February edition and 27068 is what I roasted this week. As an initial overview of the profiles, you can see that they somewhat follow a similar shape. There is somewhat of a similar heat application in this pyramid heat approach that I have been using on the lorrying behind me. The main difference I can see in this roast and end parameters are the slight adjustment in roast time, so 9 minutes and 6 seconds in the April roast and 9 minutes and 1 second in February. The development time is a little shorter in this April edition, and the end temperature is a touch lower as well. They don't look like they're significant differences, but believe me, when it comes to the cut profile, they actually are. In the April edition, I have applied a touch more gas early on in the roast. We're only talking 5% at around the 1.5 minute mark, but this was enough, I feel, to add a little bit more development into the beans early on in the roast cycle, which is an important part for me because that is another driver for solubility at an extremely light roast colour. I wanted to maintain the same shape of the rate of rise curve, so an ever declining slope, and I do feel that I've been able to control this particular phase post first crack better. There seems to be a less steep fall away, and we call that a crash. This isn't significantly a crash, but you can definitely see that there is a thermal loss as water vapor exits the beans at this point inside of the roast cycle. Keeping that under control allows you to develop the flavor profiles of the coffee more significantly, I feel. Interestingly, the return and the inlet temperatures are pretty different, and I don't actually have enough data stored to understand exactly why and what has happened in those 2 days. From what I gather, the lorrying should be pretty stable. I should be able to maintain these particular parameters fairly well between different seasons. However, there is still an amount of air that is drawn into the roaster which will have an impact on what goes on inside it. I just feel that it is more stable than what the Pro Bat was, and if I were to review these profiles over time, I hope as I become more skilled on the apparatus, they will be a better, more stable scenario. So how do I hypothesize what the difference in the cup would be based on these two roasts in front of me? Well, because the end temperature is a touch lower and the development time is a touch shorter in the April roast versus the February roast, I'd expect there to be a little more acidity inside of this cup. The fruit parameters should be a tiny bit more prominent. My hope is that those would be balanced by that additional bit of gas earlier on in the roast, giving more solubility. With more solubility in the cup, you could hypothesize that you would get a bit more body and a bit more sweetness. So the idea behind changing the roast profile in that ever so slight way is to not only promote a little bit more fruit than the February roast, but also try to attain a touch more solubility. Now I can test these things by refractometry on a similar grind size if, of course, I had kept some of the coffee from February and or had made a note of those things way back when, but I didn't. So I can't actually give true numbers based on that. This is more a hypothesis. We also then have to bring into that conundrum the effect of age on a coffee as well. Would a 2-month-old coffee extract in a different way to a 2-day-old coffee from the Loring roaster? I don't know, but I would assume yes. So it'd be a somewhat unfair test. However, I could apply this same methodology, that slight adjustment of heat earlier on in the roast, to any of these subsequent batches. However, it's unlikely that I will do that. I've only got another bag of this stuff left, and actually, I'm really enjoying the way that this tastes today. And that's an important thing, is when you're a roaster, you have to hypothesize and come up with ways of being able to produce delicious flavors in the cup. But as a business person, at some point, you have to lock that in so that you can sell the product to people. Completely changing stuff all of the time means that this tastes different. And that is not particularly fantastic for your customers, because most people want a coffee, most people want a food product that stays somewhat the same throughout time. Whether that be bad or delicious, they want it to always be bad or always be delicious. So what are the outcomes of these changes? Well, this is still a delightful coffee. The Eli Chilcon that I am releasing this week, not releasing, is available this week, does taste like pineapple. It does have cola and toffee notes. The acidity is more elevated than it has been earlier on, and texturally there is still quite a lot of the stickiness expected from the cola and toffee notes. If you like coffees that are filter backed, lovely and open and vibrant, this would be a great coffee to have a go with. And of course, now you've seen the video, you understand how I have put this roast together. I hope therefore that this presentation has proved useful. Do let me know in the comments below if you want any more explanation about those roast profiles or any of the things that you want to understand. I'll try and do a bit more deep dives into the actual roast profiles in due course, break each one of those phases down. But until then, enjoy the coffee if you pick up a bag. Have a great weekend.